Thursday, July 26, 2018, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. I want to talk about President Trump and the Federal Reserve. Someone asked me yesterday during the live stream I made last night about the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, the fact that President Trump will have appointed 6 out of the 7 members by the time he's finished his first term. Right now he's in the process, he's appointed 2 already, and those 2 are in the process of being approved by the Senate, and then he's got another 2. With that, I'll also talk about an article that I've seen on a website that I have to say I read the stuff there with a big pinch of salt. But they have written an interesting article, and I want to point it out to you. It's from whatdoesitmean.com, and it talks about how President Trump is planning to bring back the gold standard to America, and I'll look at it at that article, and another one that I saw the other day that is quite interesting about the oil price and some regulation that's coming up in 2020 for tankers, oil tankers, that could affect the oil price. Before that, though, let's have a look at what the markets are doing this morning. It's 8:45 a.m. Gold and silver have been sold off. You know, I actually think, they should be higher because the dollar is fairly weak against the yen, and that should help gold. But you never know with the precious metals. Right now, spot gold is 1227.80, down 3.5. The high's been 1235, and the low has been just a few minutes ago at 1226.88. So that's gold. Silver is down 8 cents at 1552. The high's been 1568, and the low has been 1550. So European banks, bullion banks, BIS, all in there at the moment. I did read an interesting article about the fact that the platinum commercials are now net long platinum, and they've been short that precious metals for a long time now, and yeah, that could be pointing to the commercials flipping and going long gold and silver, but we'll have to see about that. Yesterday, there's some news about Facebook. Facebook this morning, well, after the market close, went down. It's down 20% at the moment. It's at 170. Let's see, it's down, yeah, $44 at 173. So yeah, Facebook is dragging down the NASDAQ right now. NASDAQ is down 112 points, or 1.5% at 73.96. The Dow is up 40. S&P is down 11. So something's helping. One component is helping the Dow here. Not sure what. We saw quite a big rally in the last half hour in the stock market in the U.S. The Dow rallied almost 200 points, and that was in relation to the announcement by President Trump and the President of the EU Commission that they had come to an agreement on trade. We'll have to see, though. This move in the NASDAQ doesn't look good, and I would suspect we could see unless the NASDAQ recovers, we could see the Dow start going off as well, especially with the S&P being down, right? Currency-wise, it's fairly quiet except for the dollar yen. The pound is virtually unchanged at 130.185. So is the euro. Euro's fairly firm, 117.26. We were back above 117. And the dollar is almost back down to 110 against the yen. It's down 30 pips this morning, or 0.25% at 110.67. What else? Crude oil. That's what I want to talk about later. And the Federal Reserve. Crude has done very well. We're almost back up to 70. It's 69.20. It's up 0.25%. Brent crude is at 75.06, up 1%. The 10-year yield right now is at 296. I think we got up to 298 last night or yesterday afternoon. It's down 1 right now at 296. That 3% level there, very close, very nearby. So, yeah, I want to talk about this article I saw on whatdoesitmean.com. And as I said, I'd take it with a pinch of salt. It's the kind of website where they say sources. You don't really know where it's coming from. But some of the things they say make sense to me. So it says Trump begins final countdown for the event that will shake the world to its core. And they point out to the fact that Trump put a picture of Andrew Jackson right next to him in the Oval Office. And they talk about, we all know that Andrew Jackson did not renew the charter of the Second Bank of the United States, right? So, the other point they make is that Andrew Jackson actually won the 1824 election, but the power elites back then stole that election from him. And it talks about how the Federal Reserve basically bailed out foreign banks in '08, and they didn't lend them directly because they didn't want to have assets of foreign banks on their balance sheet. So they did the swaps, which are not with other central banks, which are not considered loans, right? And it's not off balance sheet. And they talk about the fact that Trump has a shadow cabinet or advisors, and one of them is a guy called John Allison IV, who's a banker, but is a proponent of abolishing the Federal Reserve, bringing back a gold standard. And then this article points out to the fact that Treasury Secretary Mnuchin went to Fort Knox on the day of the solar eclipse that crossed the entirety of America, right? August 21st, 2017. And they're saying that this was a signal for the Russians and the Chinese to accelerate their gold purchases and eventually also get rid of their treasuries, that President Trump was going to bring a gold standard, right? I'd like to believe all this, and I'm just pointing it out to you, right? The other thing they talk about is the fact that the Trump administration will be able to almost control the whole Federal Reserve. The Board of Governors has 7 members. Eventually, in the next few months or a year, Trump will have appointed 6 of those 7, and then you have the 5 the other members of the board. They're taken from the regional banks, and the New York Fed, of course, is always there, the president. There's an article here on CNBC. It says Dick Bove says Trump poised to take control of the Federal Reserve. So is he ready to make a move, some kind of move on the monetary side, on gold? We'll have to see. I mean, the Federal Reserve was created by an act of Congress on December 23rd, 1913. So it would take an act of Congress also to abolish it, or he could, so taking, being in charge of the board doesn't necessarily mean that. So we'll have to keep that in mind. The point they make on this whatdoesitmean.com article, and it's an article I read through Zero Hedge, but it's also on RT, and it says regulation that could push oil to $200 and trigger global economic collapse. So there's a lot of people have been asking me about the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, and someone asked me that question last night in the live stream. I said, yeah, that would definitely take oil up to $200 a barrel, I think. But this regulation, is going to be implemented as of 2020 by the International Maritime Organization. So it's basically to lower the sulfur levels of the fuel that super tankers or oil tankers use when they transport oil or any other product on their ships. And apparently tankers use 5% of the world's fuel. And this new regulation would make it a lot more expensive for the ship owners. They would have to adapt. They'd have to maybe buy more, transform their tankers, the fuel supply into diesel or fuel that's a lot more expensive than what they use right now. And according to this analysis, and I'll put the link below to this article, according to this guy who wrote this, this could lead to a lot higher oil prices because the tanker sector, transportation sector would have to buy a lot better, how can I say, quality crude, and it would lead to a lot higher prices. But at the same time, there's a report from Columbia University's Center on Global Energy Policy. They say that the shippers, the ship owners, will be able to adapt in a much cheaper fashion, and that the refiners for the tankers and the fuel will be able to basically mix the fuel to overcome this regulation, that it shouldn't affect the price. So there's two sides to this. There's two opinions. One says that it could go a lot higher because of this. The other one says, oh, there's no problem. We'll be able to, technology will solve that problem. So it's very interesting. And what does it mean? They link that with the Federal Reserve, the gold standard, and the fact that oil could go to 200, and they say that could be the trigger for economic collapse. We'll have to see. And we'll have to see as well if Donald Trump is intending to abolish the Federal Reserve or bring back a gold standard. These would all be good things. And I appreciate that he can't do that all at once. Right now he's trying to fight off the deep state with all this Russiagate thing that's been going on since he was inaugurated. So, and that's the other thing that what does it mean talks about. And in that sense, they're right. The fact that when Andrew Jackson became president in 1828, he had that era's deep state going all after him, calling him a traitor, just like they're doing now to Trump. So am I saying, yeah, we're going back to a gold standard? No, even though I wish we would. Am I saying go out and buy gold to make millions and get rich if we go in the gold standard in the next 2 years? No. My philosophy is always to have some gold and some silver to make it like a dollar cost averaging strategy. And if this happens, fine. If it doesn't, it's fine as well. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. You can also follow me on DTube, Steemit, and on Twitter. And I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.